Hello everybody, my name is Marlowe and welcome back to another episode in the single player world where today we are going to be building a bee farm, or more specifically a honey farm, because, well, look at my staircase here. It's made of copper. It definitely is in need of a scrape and then a wax, using the said honeycomb we're going to be farming today. And the same goes for a lot of my other builds. My copper roof up there on top of my observatory also needs a waxing, and the same with pretty much every other piece of copper I'm going to be using in this series. So yeah, a honeycomb farm is definitely needed, and I just thought we better go ahead and get that done sooner rather than later, because my builds aren't exactly going to look how I want them to look until I have lots and lots of wax. Now, bee farms are actually really quite simple to make. Once you've got a couple of bee nests, which I've actually gone ahead and done already, it's a very simple process. The actual farm is not going to take long at all, but what's the fun in just building a farm? Instead, we are going to be building a bee factory near this spot I'm currently stood on. It's definitely going to need some terraforming, that's for sure. It's really not flat at the moment, but that's okay. I can sort that out later on. So we're going to be building the actual farm underground, tucked away somewhere. But on top, I got to build something pretty. I just got to do it. So we're going to be building some kind of factory. And as always, I'm very excited to show you guys the design I've made. So I think we're going to work on the factory before we start with the farms. And by the way, here are all of my bee nests. We have 8 in total. I just went around my world on a quick adventure and gathered all of the ones that I came across. And I'm fairly certain we do have 2 or 3 bees inside of them. So when it comes to the breeding, we should be all good there. However, as I said, we're going to do the factory first of all. So I'm going to gather the remaining resources I need to get for the build, which isn't too many at all, so I'll just do that off camera, and then we can get started. A little bit of time later, and all of the resources have been collected. We are now ready to start on the build, but of course, the first thing we have to do is terraform the area behind me. For this time lapse, I thought I would do something a little bit different, and it's something I used to do quite frequently, but I haven't for a long while now, and it's talk to you guys about the build as we build it. So kind of going through my thought process, what my first steps were individually to building this and designing it in my test world, just to give you guys a bit of an insight onto the thought process I have when it comes to designing these buildings. This is hopefully going to be especially interesting because the ones we're doing in this series always seem to be a little bit weird and unique, and this build is no exception. The first thing I do with pretty much any build in this game is figure out the shape and layout of it, and that's usually done by plotting out the corners, which is what we're doing right now with these brick pillars. Originally, they were not this heavy on the detail. There were a lot less slabs, walls and stairs to make it seem a lot more interesting and uber heavy on the detail, which I really like how this turned out, but it didn't start like that, of course. And I also added in some more pillars in the longer section of the wall just to kind of split that up a bit, allowing me to do some different things with different sections of the said wall, which is what I started work on next, specifically the left and the right hand side of the wall, which is mostly made up of stone. I'm going to mix in some andesite and cobble as well, just to add some texture and break up the single block that we were using before. At the bottom we have some yellow blocks covered up by jungle trapdoors. Those will eventually become honeycomb blocks, but I obviously don't have enough to use them in the build just yet, so we'll switch them out later. And in the middle we have a big circular window using some stairs and trapdoors with some yellow glass behind it, because after all, this is a bee farm. I thought we could add a bit of pop of colour in there with the yellow, and I gotta say, I really do like the contrast here. And this I wanted to be copied round to the back as well, just because I do quite enjoy how this looks, so I thought I'd double up and add 2 more windows like this. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with the rest of the sides, so I forgot about them. I was going to come back to them later. I just started on the roof because I had an idea of what I wanted to do up there, which was to add in these windows at the top using the tinted glass, which I haven't really used before, alongside smooth stone. Now, you'll see when this is done, it's the only part of the build I'm not too certain on. It looks really good from some angles, but others not so much, so keep this specific part that we're currently building in mind, and when it's all done and you can see everything else, let me know what you guys think about it down in the comments, because like I said, I'm not entirely sure. I then started on the middle section of the roof, which was originally just going to be a continuation of the tinted glass and smooth stone, but it looked a bit too boring and flat, so I wanted to do something a little bit different. We're switching up the blocks here, adding in some different ones: deep slate, bone blocks, dark prismarine, crimson. There's a lot going on here. It all comes together quite nicely though, I think, and we're also building it a bit higher just to break away from that flatness. We do have a smoking chimney in the center just to add some life and movement, which was a theme I really wanted to get across with this build. I've been trying to do that with all of them, but this one especially. So to continue with that, I'm also building a copper cog or wheel of sorts out the front. It was originally going to be a windmill, but I've already made one of those for another build, so I thought I'd try to build some kind of mechanical cog, and eventually we're going to connect it to something on the inside. For the next part of the roof, we're just adding a trim around with spruce, nothing too complicated there at all. And then for the next block inward, we're using some full blocks just to get a gradual height change, I guess, just so it's not so sudden. And I'm not really sure what to say about this part, but what I do want to mention is that you can see we have some more yellow blocks. Those are just temporary. Hopefully we're going to be able to switch them out for bee nests eventually, but those are very difficult to get hold of in high quantities, and we need 24 of them, so maybe we will, maybe we won't. Hopefully we can, because they actually look really, really good in this build. I then started on the entranceway, which is right in the middle at the front here, and I don't really know what to say about this. We're using some oak, a bit of jungle, some more brick, some spruce. It's quite heavy on the detail, which I really like. That's about it. This is the entranceway. Round the back of the build, we're using some more oak once again, and this is actually how the bees inside that we have are going to get in and out of the building. The shape of it is meant to resemble a flower or possibly a honeycomb, and the bees ideally should be able to fit through those holes. So all I was left with was the two short sides of the building, and we started off with a deep slate gradient, and then I got stuck. I didn't really know what to add to this. And eventually what I decided on was some more copper piping, or acacia piping actually, using those trapdoors similar to what we did with the XP machine in the previous episode. And the idea here is that when we've got the bee farm underground all built up, this is how the items are going to flow inside of the factory. So when everything's done, we should in theory be able to see some items actually going through these pipes from the outside into the factory itself. Something pretty simple, but I do think when everything's done, it's gonna look pretty cool. And then just below that piping, we have a small window with some flowers that the bees will hopefully use from time to time. And with that, the exterior of my bee factory is all done, so let me know what you guys think about this build down in the comments below. I am very interested to hear your feedback. Also, let me know if you enjoyed that style of time-lapse or not, where we kind of talk through the build as we make it. It's not something I'm going to do all the time, but maybe every now and again if you guys liked it. And for those wondering, this is what it looks like from a distance, and it actually is kind of cool. I like it more alongside everything else. When it was just kind of sat alone in my test world, it looked a little bit out of place, but with our other weird buildings, I gotta say, I am a fan. So you've seen the exterior, we don't need to go over any of that. I'm gonna go ahead and just get started on all of the interior here, because right now it's a big old mess, and I think before I add any of the more interesting details of the interior, that looks like a face. I'm just going to go ahead and smoothen out the walls and the ceilings and the floor, just so you guys got an idea of what the general shape of the interior is going to look like, and then we can add the more fun things like the copper piping, for instance. For those wondering, this is always the first thing I do when it comes to interiors. Just the floors, the ceilings and the walls, just smoothing everything out, and then you kind of have a blank canvas to work on, or at least a fairly blank canvas. A neat canvas maybe is the better term. So I always get all of this done first of all, and then I work on what I'm actually going to put inside, which for this build isn't going to be too complicated at all. We're pretty much going to be building our pipes all the way through and down into these holes on both of the sides. I'm going to add something in the middle here to connect up to that at the top, and that honestly may be it for now. Something I've never done in Minecraft is build an automatic tree farm, and that's because I genuinely enjoy chopping down trees, with the exception of one in particular, and that is acacia, and I just so happen to be using a butt ton of it in this world. And the trapdoors are so expensive, but they look so good with everything I'm doing, I just can't help myself. So I may honestly have a look around for an acacia only tree farm and build that at a later stage, but not for today. I'll just have to slave away with my axe. But as you can see, our copper piping is in place. I keep calling this copper. It's meant to be copper, but it's acacia. It's orange. It's close enough. We do have to, of course, get the water and all that in, but I'll sort that out when the bee farm underground is all done. Which we're going to pretty much start on right away, because this centerpiece is actually missing a block, and that is a honey block to go in the center here. The idea is the gears are all connected up to this lightning rod. Is that what it's called? Yeah, lightning rod. And it's meant to be some sort of stirring device. I don't know. The cogs and gears turn outside somehow and then end up rotating this thing around, which is going to look like it's stirring up the honey. And there's actually one thing I forgot to add, and that is a tap around the back here, which is how you would tap out the honey, in theory. Got to use your imagination a bit, but I do think it helps add a little bit of life to the build. So the building now is all done, with the exception of the blocks that we need to get from the bee farm that's going to go underground, such as the yellow blocks here on the exterior and also that honey block in the center. So we need to start on this honey farm. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and maybe dig out the hole underground, build up the honey farms, and then we can see if we can do the fun process of moving in the bees. So here is my honey bottle and my honeycomb farm. Now, the first thing I'll say is this is pretty much my own design, with the exception of the actual redstone elements. So I needed a tutorial from Shulkercraft for this side, for the honey bottle side, and from Mysticat for the honeycomb side. So I'll try and leave a link to those in the description down below, but they're not for this actual design. It's kind of like a mixture of the two to just what suits my needs the best. Now you may be wondering why we have oak planks here. Well, these are just markers and temporary blocks for the beehives that will be replacing them, but obviously I don't have any honey at the moment to actually craft them. So the thing I'm going to do is, as I get more honey, I will replace the oak planks, and then eventually, hopefully by the end of today's episode, we should have a full line of beehives instead of these oak blocks. I definitely had some honeycomb that I got whilst I was collecting these bee nests. Any that were full up, I would grab the actual honey inside of it beforehand. The trouble is, I have no idea where I've put it. And it's really annoying, because I could of course get started with the farm if I could find where on earth I've actually placed this honey. I think I'm just gonna have to go through we found it! Oh, it's only 6. That's kind of disappointing. That's enough for 2 beehives. Oh well, 2 beehives are better than no beehives. So we need bees and we need honey, and to get both of those, I'm going to place down all of the bee nests that I got in between episodes, and I'll stick some campfires under them, so any honey they do make from getting pollen from these flowering azalea leaves, I'll be able to harvest that without them all getting mad at me, stinging me, and then proceeding to die. And with all of that honey, I'm going to go ahead and make the beehives, and slowly but surely, I will replace all of these oak planks with some proper beehive blocks. And whilst I'm making all of that honey, at the same time, I'm going to breed them up using some flowers so we can get a large population of bees. Just doing a final check on the trapdoor up here. Yep, that is closed. Okay, so there's no way out for the bees, to my knowledge. I've got the campfires down over here, so they should just go directly to the flowers, although they may actually not, because it is nighttime outside. Okay, well that explains things. I'll have to wait until morning. Or, you know, I could sleep. I have a bed for that sort of thing. There they are. Look at these bees go. Okay, right. Don't get distracted. Go do your job. Get that honey. And whilst you're doing that, I'm going to go grab some flowers and breed you guys up. And I'll maybe come back in and keep you guys updated. Oh, I got to go careful not to punch. If I had a punch with bee then, oh, it would have been over for me. Episode done. Just would have stopped right there. You can breed bees with 2 high flowers, right? It doesn't matter as long as it is a flower. This is the easiest for me to obtain because I basically have unlimited bone meal and you can do this to 2 high flowers. It just saves me having to go out into the wild searching for flowers to pick by hand. Oh no you don't, bees. What on earth was that? Why are they just hovering around? Let's break these ladders, shall we? Very they sound mad. Oh, am I gonna regret this? Let's just find out. Please don't be mad at me. No, why did they sound so furious just then? Anyway, so we got all our bees flying around here. Before I start breeding them up, I would just like to stock some of the dispensers here with the right items, so water bottles and shears, just so when we do eventually get some beehives in place, when the farm actually triggers, it's going to work basically and not end up breaking it somehow. And there we go. All of the dispensers are now kitted out with shears or honey bottles, or empty bottles I should say. So I think I am ready to... Oh, I need a set of shears for myself to actually get the honey from these bee nests. But that's okay, I'll go grab that. What I have to do now is continuously farm the honey out of here, breed the bees, and slowly replace the oak planks with actual beehives. This is going to take me a while, so I'll see you guys in a little bit. Oh buddy, have I been a busy bee, and so have all of these guys right here as well. They have been little champions working away like the absolute troopers they are, getting lots of honey and doing lots of breeding too. There are a lot of bees, not enough just yet. However, I have got more than enough honey. As you can see, all of the beehives are now in place and I have plenty left over. It's just non-stop production of this. But yeah, we haven't quite filled out all of these with enough bees. I don't really know how to tell when is enough. I guess I'm just going to keep going. But I'm going to stop for now because I've been going at this for a while and I'm tired. I want to do something else. And we'll get started on that very shortly, but for now I just want to mention that you may have noticed a couple of new bee nests been added to this line over here. I think there's 4 in total, and that's because I've actually been farming these during all of that time lapse whilst doing all of this. I've been doing that as well. So for those who don't know, you can actually get these to naturally generate by growing a tree, an oak or a birch tree that is, within 2 blocks of a flower. So I've pretty much been doing this for many times over and I've only managed to get 4. So yeah, it's a slow process. As you can see, we now have 12 here, and if you guys can remember, I wanted to use these blocks in the build up there. And I need 24 of them. Currently we have half of that, so I think what I might do just for now is get these and put them at the front of the build, and then we'll add in the ones around the back at a later stage. Currently there are some residents living inside of here though, a lot of bees, and what I'm actually going to do is first of all go to bed, because then I'm hoping in the morning they should all exit their nests, and then I'm really quickly going to go along here with my beehives, trying not to hit them as I do this. Oh, I need to use Silk Touch. But I'm going to go along and replace all of these with some bee nests, and hopefully they can take residence up in here so that I can still continue to breed them up and get some more inside of the farm. But I'm also going to be able to use these inside of the build up on the surface, and it seems like they're actually going in them, which is great. Let's just go along and make sure I grab all of those because they are precious. Very hard to come by. I'm missing 2. That's not good. There's an extra one. There's one more laying around. There it is. Okay, brilliant. That is 12 in total. Let's go place these on the build. And I've also been able to craft some honeycomb blocks here, and those are going to be to replace the blocks behind the jungle trapdoors on the bottom of the build. It appears I would not be able to count. There are 8 of these on each section, and there's 4 sections, so I need 32 in total, not 24. I would like to at least get this front side done, so I think I'm going to see if I can get my hand on 4 more bee's nest. Here is the before without the bee nests and honeycomb, and here is the after. Was it worth it? You decide. I don't quite frankly know if it was. I think it was, because I really do like that block along the side there. I think it's a lovely touch and a great, you know, recognition to what's actually going on here with the bee factory and what's inside and what's underground. I think it's great. However, I don't know if I'm going to do it round the back. What I might just do is bring the strip spruce logs that we have here on round the back as well, because you're not going to see this side as much, and an extra 16 bee nests, that's a lot of work for something that's going to go pretty much unnoticed. So I mentioned how I wanted to go do something else, and I still do, and we are going to be doing that very shortly just to end off the episode here. But for right now, I've had enough with these bees today. I'm going to do some more work in between episodes, so I just thought I'd let you guys know what that's actually going to be. So there has to be more breeding. There may look like there's quite a lot of bees inside of here, but there's virtually none in the honey bottle side of things. So yeah, this side virtually unpopulated. This side doing great, making lots of honeycomb, which is my main priority, but more breeding is going to have to happen. So that's the main thing. I'm also gonna, when it's all populated, connect up some hoppers under here and lead them into the copper acacia piping that we have and link it to the factory and kind of get all that done. And honestly, once that's all sorted, that should be pretty much everything. There is one thing we can very quickly do up the top here, and that is to add in our honey blocks in our stirring machine. So yeah, there we go. That's the finishing touch for this centerpiece. I think it looks really good having the honey in there. So what I want to do to end off this episode is actually related to what we built in the previous episode, which was our XP machine. And if you guys watch right to the end where the end screen is and I'm no longer talking, which I don't think many of you do, which is fine, I put some text on the screen to mention that the bamboo, it can't really keep up with the amount of cactus we have. As you can see, there's barely any bamboo and there is an overflow of cactus, more than I need. So pretty much we have to make a bamboo farm expansion. But first, I'm going to flick this lever so we can actually get some XP from this furnace, because I have left this thing running the entire time whilst making this episode, which has been a long while, by the way. I don't know how long exactly, but I'm very curious as to see how much XP we're actually going to get from this. So I got my pickaxe and my shovel in my hand. Let's see what we can get from this. Well, it fully replenished my pickaxe and did nothing. No, it got my shovel too and gave me 20 levels. Wow, okay, and that was it working like half of the time. So, yeah, we definitely need to make this bamboo farm expansion, because that is kind of awesome, honestly. So this is the bamboo farm at the moment, and we can actually expand this in a very easy way. All we have to do is make the bamboo farm longer in this direction. I'm not sure how many more slime blocks we can attach to this, but we can certainly get a few more. I don't know what the capacity is for flying machines. I'll have to do some research there, but we can knock it over by that way a few blocks, clear out some area, move the bamboo on along this way with the rail as well, so we can also collect the drops. That's kind of important. And that's all we have to do. Pretty simple. I don't have to mess with the redstone or anything like that. It's literally just expanding it sideways by a few blocks, and just doing that alone, it's going to allow us to get a lot more bamboo, which hopefully then should be able to keep up with the cactus. So we could extend the farm by 6 extra rows, and it's now fully done. And I've only just realized I don't think any of that was needed. So you see I have a lot of these type of bamboo. There were a lot more before I placed down these jack-o'-lanterns. I don't think it was bright enough in here for like over half of the bamboo to grow. So now we're running at 4 times the amount of bamboo. So that's definitely gonna be enough. There's no question about it whatsoever. I honestly don't think the minecart under here is gonna be able to keep up with it, but that's okay. It's not going to be that many items. It's not going to lag my world or anything. It just means we are constantly going to have a constant supply of bamboo and also cactus, which means all of the time this furnace in theory should be running. It's not right now because, I mean, it's not run yet. The farm hasn't harvested, but yeah, this should now be working a whole lot better. I do also need to replace this barrel with a dropper system that just chucks it straight into lava, because that's going to overflow and break the furnace at some point in time. So I'll do that also in between episodes. I got a lot to do before I start recording the next one. So yeah, this is where we're going to wrap up for today's episode, guys. Maybe let's fly over to the bee factory, trying not to crash and die in the process. This is probably good. Near enough. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode and you like how the build turned out. Any feedback would be very much so appreciated. Thank you as always for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.